Now we start with China. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has warned that a multipolar world is on the rise, signaling a subtle challenge to the United States. Wang has urged countries to avoid politicizing trade and economic issues and to steer clear of tariffs and trade wars. He has stressed the importance of upholding global rules and multilateral agreements. He has also reflected on China's stance on bullying through power. Let's listen into what Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister, has said.
退群毁约，热衷编织阵营化小圈子，使多边主义遭受前所未有的挑战。但是，历史潮流无法逆转，多极世界正在到来。如果迷信实力至上，热衷强权霸凌，只会把世界推向弱肉强食的丛林，只会动摇国际体系和规则的根基。我们呼吁停止将经贸问题政治化，停止人为割裂全球市场，停止动辄挑起。
These comments from Wang Yi come ahead of a key meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping later this week in South Korea. Trump is currently on an Asia tour with talks focused on easing tensions over tariffs and trade disputes. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and China's Vice Premier He Lifeng have already held 2 days of discussions. Now for this discussion, we welcome Andrew K.P. Long. He's a China strategist, joins us live from Hong Kong. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us again. Good to see you. Andrew, how does China's call for a multipolar world challenge the previously U.S.-led global order, or in U.S.'s point of view, still the U.S.-led global order?
Well, first of all, I'm joining you from Hong Kong, okay? Anyway, the reference to the multipolar world must be understood as this different from some people say that, okay, after the Second World War, or even in recent years, you have the United States, you have Russia, you have Europe. Well, that's the multipolar world. No, this is not the same kind of multipolar scenario Foreign Minister Wang Yi was referring to. He's referring to the world where the smaller countries and medium-sized countries can still play a very important role and are able to defend their own interests, as happening increasingly now. You can see that the rise of the global south, together with the developing economies, emerging economies. In fact, according to the IMF, in 2023, I think, the combined GDP of the emerging economies and the developing countries account for something like 58% of the world's global GDP. And of course, if we're talking about the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South America, South Africa, together with the new members of the BRICS, they are bigger than the G7. So the sands are shifting, the power is shifting. Not that they're pitching, making the global south predominant. By no means, they're still developing countries, but collectively as a whole, they are able to pull their weight, and then lends itself to a more multipolar, more fairer world, a more inclusive world, where people can trade with another. For example, if you go buy and sell things, the buyer gets some benefit, the seller gets some benefit. It's not a zero-sum game. That's the world I think most countries would like to live in, rather than rules of the jungle, and the strong always have their say, and the weak have to bear the consequences. So that's what former Foreign Minister Wang Yi is referring to.
And what role do multilateral agreements play in managing tensions between major economic powers like U.S., China, and what can we expect from the upcoming meeting between President Trump and Xi?
Well, the lower level ministers or the trade minister and various other negotiators have already laid the groundwork for a positive outcome. In other words, coming to some sort of accommodation on key matters that matters to President Trump and key matters that matters to China, to President Xi. What happened, what matters to President Trump is, of course, immediately the soybeans. The soybeans, of course, affect the Republican Party's main supporters in those states which produce, rely on agricultural exports. These are President Trump's main supporting constituent states. And then as China has buying all the soybeans because of the trade war from Brazil, from Russia, this is hurting Trump's constituencies. But of course, it's relatively easier for China to accommodate that. So I think that in this preliminary framework agreement, China has agreed to buy, revert back to the United States for purchase soybeans. And of course, as far as the rare earths are concerned, which is of course China's newfound stranglehold over Americans' Achilles heel, because these are extremely complicated processes to produce, and some elements are essential, indispensable components in key products, including the military, F-35 fighters, for example. So I think that, again, China has agreed to not to give up this countermeasure entirely, but to relax its implementation for a year. So I think that's easier for China to accede in order to promote a more positive outcome in the meeting between President Xi and President Trump.
With that, I would like to thank Andrew K.P. Long for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news.